Good afternoon, my fellow residents. You look good being together. I wish your mask could be off, and someday that will come. Let me read this first. In the event of a fire alarm sounds, please remain in the auditorium and stay seated. Should there be a need to evacuate, a Springmore staff member will direct you on how to leave in an orderly fashion. Please remember not to use the elevators and to go to a red pole outside. We've heard all of that before, but it's good information. I'm Julia McCullers, president of the Residents Association, and we have all kinds of things to do today. So I'm going to start with a presentation by Carrie Ritchie. We all know Carrie and what a great job she does. And she is going to speak in Brandon's place. Brandon is away today. Carrie.
Good afternoon. It's lovely to see you. First, I'm going to put on a chaplain's hat because they could not be here. They have 3 announcements for you. A grief support group will begin in November. So if you would like to be a part of a grief support group, that will be in November on Tuesday afternoons. There will be an annual memorial service in November, Wednesday, November 3rd at 2 p.m. And they will have a Thanksgiving service, obviously November, Wednesday, November 24th at 10:30. All right. So Brandon asked me to speak about the vaccine update. There was a nice little paragraph in your October memo, which I'm basically repeating that. So if you already read it, sorry. But as you all know, the FDA has approved the Pfizer vaccine for the 3rd dose. But for those of us who lived and worked here in December and January, we got Moderna. And the pharmacist, Sarah Wisner, who's the Director of Clinical Services from Medipac, she's kind of our main point of contact for all our vaccine information. She told us that the FDA is meeting this week, the 14th or 15th, to do their initial approval. But then it's not a one-step deal. There's other committees. And she said maybe within a week or so after that, then we might hear the official approval, guidance, and recommendations from there. So if and when that happens, Medipac is ready. They have the supply, and they will provide the vaccination here. And we will coordinate that all like we did for the 1st and 2nd rounds. So as soon as we know, we will let you know. But until then, as one pharmacist told me, hang tight. And a fun little statistic for you, we did have 2 flu shot clinics from Walgreens. We did 190 shots on September 28th and 132 shots on October 7th. And of course, some people go elsewhere to get their shots. But if you haven't gotten it and you want to get it done here, it's nice and convenient. We have one more chance, October 21st in the auditorium, 1:30 to 4. You could call me, we'll get you on the schedule and get you your paperwork. Thank you.
Carrie?
Yes?
Ad-lib a minute and brag a little about the vaccination rate for our employees.
Well, we reached our deadline, so it is mandated for all employees. I don't have the exact number. 98% employees. There was just a small number of exemptions. And then the rest are vaccinated. Yay! So that is great. And we had been vaccinating from the time you all got yours every month, once a month. We were continuing those vaccines for employees and family members. So they had lots of opportunities, and we're thankful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Always competent care. Do you mind if I give a little editorial? Even if you do mind, I'll try to make it quick. So here goes. I am proud to be able to tell my grandchildren that I remember certain aspects of World War II, and I remember them rather well. I was in grammar school in 1941 through 1945, and some of you may recall those days too. In World War II, some 418,000 Americans died. That figure, as horrible, absolutely horrible as it was, is put into perspective a little bit when we try to take in the fact that COVID-19 has, as of today, claimed 714,000 Americans, and it's still a threat. During World War II, and I am old enough to remember this, Americans were urged to do their part to help with the war effort. Even those of us who were not in uniform wanted to do our part. My father, too old for the draft, planted a monstrous victory garden that produced enough veggies to feed the whole neighborhood. He accepted an A sticker on his car that severely limited the amount of gas he could buy each month. My mother cooked cookies and cakes for the USO, where lonely homesick soldiers from Fort Bragg gathered on weekends, and she wrote who knows how many letters to her 5 brothers who had been drafted and were serving all over the world. My sister and I were so enthusiastic about the scrap metal and paper drives. Does anybody remember that from grade? Scrap metal and paper drives at our school that our mother had to caution us not to contribute the kettle on the stove or that same day's News and Observer. And she and I volunteered to run to the A&P grocery store when the word got around that the store had managed to get a stalk of bananas and that regular customers could purchase 1 banana for each member of their family. We all wanted to do our part. Now, in this war on COVID-19, all of us want to do our part, and we've been doing it. Here at Springmore, we are vaccinated and masked most of the time, as we should be, and we are doing our part. But I'd like to speak to you about a couple of other ways that we can do our part, especially when it comes to the F word, food. Food. Just in case you haven't noticed, we have a very real shortage of food service employees here at Springmore. The lines for a meal are sometimes discouragingly long, and waited service seems like a distant memory. And if we do takeouts, we are dismayed, perhaps, by spills of our soup on the way home and the rapid accumulation of plastic containers that quickly fill our garbage cans. Has anybody else noticed that, how all these plastic things just fill up your garbage can in one day? But COVID stubbornly refuses to go away and allow us to return to the good old days. So I have been asking fellow residents at meals and when we're chatting in the hall and so forth, if they had any suggestions about how we can do our part when it comes to food. And here are some of the things that they said. If you recognize having said this to me when you were talking with me, that's okay. One said, if you do takeouts, why not bring along one of those reusable baskets with a sturdy handle? The people who live over in the houses do that, and they are going along like Little Red Riding Hood on the way to her grandmother's with those sturdy baskets, and they're reusable. Or these bags, how many do you have? How many have you thrown away? If you're going to get a takeout and it's still clean, you didn't spill anything in it, can't you use it a second time or a third? And one wise woman that I was eating with the other day said to me, try eating at lunch rather than at dinner. It's less crowded. Now, we're creatures of habit, but we can change. Another clever woman said, I try not to hesitate over choices when I'm in line. I read the menus in advance and have a pretty good idea of what I'll choose before I get there. And someone else that I was chatting with said, I try to put myself in the place of the staff behind the counter, and I state in a firm, loud enough voice, not rude, but loud enough, I say to them, take out or eat in, and whether I want gravy or an extra small or extra small serving, the staff will love you for it. And someone else said, I try to think positive thoughts about the whole complicated business of feeding over 500 people with a smaller than usual staff. I try to say something kind to the workers who are doing their dead level best to keep us fed during hard times. I really believe that we Springmore residents want to do our part, just as we did during World War II. And thank you for listening to my editorial. October is the month when our new slate of officers for the residents association come up. Our nominations committee, made up of Susan Walton as the chair, Betty Bridges, Gail Jens, Barbara McGee, and Betty Moore, chose some very outstanding choices for the offices to be held in 2022. I have trouble saying 2022. That doesn't sound normal yet. They suggested these people. For President, Peg Bedini. For Vice President, Dave Waters. For Secretary, Janet Carter. For Directors, Carol Bryan, A.J. Gardner, Jim Bundy, and Barbara Smith. The Constitution states that at this October meeting, after your having known about these nominees for a month, I ask if there are any further nominations for president. I will hesitate here and say, if you're going to suggest another name, you must have asked that person if he, she is willing to serve before you nominate from the floor. Is there another nomination for vice president? Are there nominations for directors for 2022? Since there are no further nominations from the floor, the Constitution says that we may accept what the nominating committee suggested by acclamation. Congratulations. And now we'll save the door prizes for a little bit later, and they are generously given to us by First Citizens Bank. I will turn the program over to Susan Walton, Chairman of the Health Committee of the Residents Association, who will introduce the program. Susan?
Actually, I'm the chair of the Health Center Committee. There's a health center committee that is directed to act as a liaison between the independent residents and the health center to take concerns that we may hear about in the community to the health center and to bring back information to the residents from the health center. So we aren't really a health care committee, we are a health center committee. Since we could not go to the health center this year because of all of the COVID issues and the quarantines and so forth, in order for the committee, some of people on the committee are new, some are old committee members, but some are new members. I decided that what we would do for the first of the year and what we have done for the entire year was learn about the health center ourselves. And we have done that by having the various department heads, starting with Carrie Corley as the director of the health center, and with Debbie Stavinsky as the director of nursing in the health center, on down through activities, dietary, the social workers. Every leader in the health center has come to our meetings and has presented us with information about what their job is and what they do. And we found that to be so incredibly helpful overall that we really wanted to share with this group what Kerry Corley had to say about his role in the health center, and also what Debbie Stavinsky had to say about her role as director of nursing. I have been incredibly impressed with both of these people over the years, working first with seeing Debbie in the clinic for my entire time here until this year when she took over as director of nursing in the health center, and working with Kerry Corley as chair of this committee in previous years. So I am excited to introduce Kerry Corley to talk about his role as director of the health center, and he will be followed by Debbie Stavinsky, who will talk about her role as the director of nursing and what she sees the needs to be and how she is trying to meet those needs. Thank you.
How's everybody today? Good. My name is Kerry Corley, and I am the senior staff member for all the health care here at Springmore. Okay, got it. My title is administrator. I am the official administrator with the Department of Health and Human Services for the health center. You're required by law to have a licensed nursing home administrator as the administrator, and I am that. I'm also the director of home care, which is also required. You have to have a home care director to have a home care agency. And we are licensed as a home care agency with the Department of Health Service regulations also. Healthcare here comes in two ways. One is inpatient and one is outpatient. So inpatient, there's only one place you can get inpatient care at Springmore, and that's in the health center. Okay, we don't age in place in health center. You know, as your needs change, then your location changes, and then when you need inpatient care, then you come to the health center. And it's the only place at Springmore that's licensed to do that. Outpatient is everything else. So if you need to see the doctor, you have a doctor here at Springmore and you see him in the clinic, and you need to go to physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech pathology, all those kind of things, that's all considered to be outpatient services. And everything, the clinic, supported living center, and home care, that's all outpatient. Okay? A completely different set of rules for that, a completely different set of rules for the health center, and a completely different set of rules for home care. Okay? So there's a lot of rules. You know, when I was training, even back, I'm 63 years old, can believe that or not. Seems old to me, but anyway. And it was a long time ago when I was training to be administrator, and one of the exercises that we did was we started listing agencies that had something to do with nursing homes. Anything that a government agency had to do with the nursing home, we wrote it on the blackboard at that time. We had blackboards, you know. And so we started listing those, and we stopped listing those agencies when we got to 150 because it got a little redundant. But the point is, you know, we used to make this joke that the only thing with more regulations than a nursing home is a nuclear power plant. I mean, it's really, there's just so many rules. And, you know, the number one question I get is, why would you do it that way in the health center? I don't understand. And the answer usually is the regulations. You know, so it's very regulation focused and all that kind of thing. We spend a lot of time on compliance. We have quality assurance committees that go out and check things. We come in unannounced on shifts that no one knows we're coming. I mean, we do a lot to stay in compliance here, and so that takes a lot of our time. And you know, the regs, if you've ever read regulations, please have a cup of coffee, because it's really, it's very boring and dry, and but it's very important for us to be in compliance, and so I'm glad to do it. If I added up all of the dollars that I'm responsible for in these three divisions, I'm responsible for about $8.5 million in expenses on an annual basis. Okay, that's just my responsibility. If we added up all of the Springmore employees and said, okay, 50% of all the employees that work here work in healthcare. Okay, so it's easily the largest department, and there's a lot of moving parts. You know, Ms. Walden was just talking about, you know, all these moving parts, all these different middle managers that are working day and night, you know, to be sure that we're in compliance and to bring you good services and all that kind of thing. It's just a lot going on. I could make a long list of the things that I do on a detailed basis, but I don't think that'd be a good presentation. But did want to give you some kind of idea of what we do. I did want to address COVID a little bit, because obviously there's been a lot of urgency put onto COVID for people that are in long-term care, because the people in the health center especially are the most compromised people that live at Springmore, and we don't need them to get COVID. And I'm sorry that we've had to make the unpleasant decisions of not allowing people to visit, but you know, if you just think about on a daily basis of the amount of people that go into Stewart Health Center and go back out on a daily basis, on a normal basis, when we're in normal operation, it's staggering. I mean, if you just stand and you watch, then I've done this. I've stood and watched the door. I said, okay, how many people in a 10-minute period of time go through these doors? And it's incredible, the amount of people that go in. And if we think that we can track every single person to be sure that they have a vaccination when they go in and come out, we can't do it. I mean, we can't possibly. We try to screen you on the way in. We try to advise people. We've pushed really hard on our vaccination. Our vaccination rates are up very high. We're really pleased with how we've done on that. We've only been in outbreak status 2 times, but, you know, outbreak status seems terrible. You know, that's such a terrible word to use, but that's the health department word for, you know, when you're supposedly at risk in a facility, but it only takes 2 cases to get an outbreak status. I'm like, you know, well, I get 1 case, the roommate gets it, and now I'm in outbreak status. You know, it doesn't seem to fit what's really going on. But I'm pretty happy with our county rate. It's been up, it's been down. Of course, it's fluctuated. But if you look at some of the statistics, you know, in other places, I think we're all glad to be here and not other places. And I think we're all glad that we've got our vaccination rates up. We just went through another challenge, Debbie and I did not too long ago, and you know, we had to make that unfortunate decision to make the vaccine mandatory. You know, and if you're already compromised on your staffing, and now your boss comes and says, "Pull the plug, we're going mandatory." I'm like, "Whoa, okay, well, I don't even have enough people to start off with, and what if we lose 50 people? What do we do?" You know, it was a scary thing. It really was. But we worked really hard to call these people personally. Debbie and Gail and a few other people called people on the phone personally and says, "Please, you know, let's do the right thing here. Let's get a vaccination." And so we brought that list all the way from 45 people to 2. And we did it in a period of 2 weeks. And I just want to recognize her. Good job. There's a lot of other things that we do in surveillance of, you know, if you're a healthcare administrator, obviously you can't do it all from your office. You have to be on the floor. You have to walk through. Some of it's regulations, but there's other things that we worry about. Some of it's like appearance care, and housekeeping and making the environment pleasant. We're trying very hard to make it home-like and not look like an institution or feel like one. And we're working really hard on a new model for for health care in the health center. And it's kind of a neighborhood concept. I'm sure some of you have heard about that. And we're going to go through a really large renovation in the health center, not so much externally or the exterior walls, but a lot of the internal walls, and we're going to move a lot of things around, and it's just going to be a very needed upgrade to the health center, and that's starting within the next few months. I think we're going to be started on that. So I just want to go back to staffing. We do have enough people to provide the care that we're supposed to give. We have put more incentives in place to try to entice people to work when they're off. Like sometimes we provide free meals if they're willing to come in, and they haven't been scheduled, and then we give them differentials. If we're supposed to have, let's just say, 10 nurse aides on a shift, and we end up with 7, well, that means everybody there has got to take more people, And so we're providing some pay incentives, for people that have had to go through those times. And I think for the most part, it seems to be working at the moment. It's helped us to fill some of the vacancies. But we're trying to be as innovative as we possibly can to try to get, all these things covered. I do want to recognize the work of the Healthcare Committee because I think it's important. We try really hard here at Springmore to have the committees of all kinds to be resident focused. And so it's great to have a nice leader like Ms. Walton and also the people that serve on the committee. Of course, COVID's affected that too. We used to have walk-through inspections. I call them inspections. They're not really inspections, but anyway, they walk through and they talk to people and get their concerns, and then they, convey those, to management. And then we try to follow up and see if we can't make any improvements, as we need to. But because of COVID, we stopped those temporarily. So hopefully those will go back. But, there's other things that happen on the Healthcare Committee, and I think it's important for them to be on the committee and then be able to take your concerns. And then also, if we have a message that we'd like to get out and people are constantly misunderstanding something, then this is a good communication vehicle both ways. But anyway, I did want to thank everyone that serves on that committee. I think it's very important. We have a lot of surveys. A lot of agencies come in to Springmore to survey us to be sure that we're in compliance. You probably know that they come in for an elevator inspection. Those happen pretty frequently. And you probably might have noticed that the labor secretary changed not too long ago, so it's no longer, I think it was Miss Berry for a long time, and now there's another one. I don't know if you see the new picture that's on the elevators, but that's because there's a new secretary. And they come in and do those. The fire department comes up on a regular basis, and that would include the health center and has special rules for the health center. There's an environmental department that comes into Springmore, and you've noticed the percentage scores, like A, B, C, and all that kind of thing, and then it gives you a percentage, And so if we have to make an A in the health center, if we don't make an A, then we have to report it to the state, and that could trigger another inspection for them to come out here. So it's very important that we do well on those surveys. But that's done by that environmental department of health. And then, of course, there's the Department of Health Service Regulations, and you have to kind of peel that back because that's a large department, and we call it the Department of Facility Services, and those are the people that come out and do our health care inspections. Normally, they come every 3 to 5 years, and I'd say in the last 22 years and 9 months, we have had one complaint survey since I've worked here. And we've only had one substantiated deficiency when they came out because they called it a trend. And I don't know, 10 years before that, we had the same thing. So they said, oh, well, that's a trend. I'm like, from 10 years ago? Really? But anyway, I think it's a pretty good record. We don't have a lot of the state out here all the time. I think it's a testament to the care that we're given in the job that we do. So I'm real happy on how it is over here. And I've enjoyed being here very much. Just wanted you to know that. I have great friends here and have enjoyed working here. That's about all I had without getting into too many details. And so I'd like to turn it over to Debbie.
Alrighty, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and I thank Mrs. Walton for letting me come and Carrie come and speak with you. It truly is an honor to work here at Springmore, and I appreciate each one of you. So thank you so much for being here today. My name is Debbie Savinsky, and I'm not 63. I'm 45. And that doesn't seem too old to me. But I'm thankful to be here in Raleigh. We've been here about 23, 24 years now. My husband's name is Scott, and we have 3 boys. So if you see some gray hairs, that's why. But I love my boys. They're so much fun. It's a privilege to be mom. I've been in the health center and in the outpatient clinic now for a number of years. And when this position opened up, I just was ready for a little bit more of a challenge and something different. And I'm really thankful that Carrie took a gamble on me and let me come over to help him. So I appreciate the opportunity to be your director of nursing. In the health center, we have about 70 nurses and about 80 CNAs, and then I also have about 12 administrative nurses under me that help me an awful lot. And I am so privileged that I have them a lot of them as really, really dear friends too. So I think that is huge. When I have a need, it's very easy to get help from anybody that I ask. They jump right in to help me. And I think that's wonderful that we all have a good work rapport together. So I appreciate that so much. Carrie mentioned with our staffing concerns that we have currently, it's not just Springmore, it's nationwide. As you've seen, anywhere you go to get something to eat, or if you all go out with family, you see help wanted all over the U.S., really. I'm so thankful we have some really wonderful, dedicated staff. Is it harder to hear? Yeah. Okay. Is that better? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. I just wanted to say that there's a need all over the U.S. for help, but that we have wonderful, really dedicated staff here at Springmore. There are people that wake up and come here to work every day, and they're very dedicated to their particular residents that they care for. And there's no perfect place, but Springmore really is pretty unique and wonderful. And I'm very thankful for the staff that we have here in the health center. We have been offering some incentives when we are short-staffed on certain shifts, and that, as Carrie said, has been really working. We would much rather pay our own that love your residents here in the health center than to have an agency come in. We've had to do that in the past when we were in desperate need, and it's been wonderful. We haven't needed that at all, so I'm thankful for that. Our staffing ratios are actually really pretty good right now. So you can pray along with me that God will bring the right people to care for you all. But right now we're actually doing fairly well in the health center. We are always wanting to have more staff in, but we're doing all right, and we want the right ones in. We want to make sure that it's people that are going to love and have the right philosophy here at Springmore to care for you all. In administration in the health center, I've gone from hands-on care much more now to stepping back to do a lot of the administrative. But at the same time, I like to stay hands-on. I was in the clinic today with Dr. Orr working on a wound vac. So we are involved with a lot of things too and trying to stay up with everything that's going on in the health center. But there is a lot of paperwork and a lot of things that I work on specifically with policies and procedures to make sure that our staff is up to date and to make sure that they are ready for when state does come in and when they do a survey, that they would be confident with their answers and that they know what the procedures are here at Springmore. So I spend time with the staff. We just had a CNA meeting. And that was for all of our CNAs, our certified nursing assistants in the health center. I asked that they come to the meeting. It's usually about an hour long. And it goes over some of the praises that I have for them, and then some of the things we need to step it up and work on. And then I try to give them opportunity to share, too, some of their frustrations or something that they have need of. And so that's been a big help. We also have a nursing meeting coming up next month as well. And we try to, again, do the same thing so that we're all communicating together on what is going on in the health center and what we can do to take care of our residents. I spend a lot of time coaching and mentoring, trying to help the nurses, trying to help the CNAs. You don't want to get shocked on a review, every annual review. You want to know ahead of time if there's an issue. I'll pull them aside privately and work with them and try to help them understand where they're doing really well and where we need to work on and improve. And so I spend a lot of time trying to coach and mentor, too, with some of our staff and also some of the administrative staff. Feels like you're a lot of times stomping out fires and trying to make things calm with people's different personalities, trying to work it all together for the common good of our resident. I also do a lot of rounding. I spend time in the health center. It's hard to know what's going on if I'm just locked in a room. So I do try to get out there when there are new admissions. I try to spend some time with them so that I know what's going on. Sometimes I have to end up sending another my administrative nurse to help me because I'm in different meetings and such, and I'm not able to personally go. But I try to make sure that we know what's going on in the health center. I wanted to talk about, too, if you do come to the health center or you have a loved one in the health center, that there are a lot of different options as far as if there is an issue that comes up. You don't have to wait till Monday. If it's on a Saturday morning, there are so many helps. We have the nurse on the floor. You have your nursing supervisor. You have a shift manager. And you also have the clinic is open, too. And so there's a lot of opportunity to get help. You don't have to wait for the weekend if there's a situation. Several weeks ago, there was a situation on a weekend that a resident had and emailed, and I'm pretty quick to respond to email even on a weekend because I check quickly just to make sure that there's nothing urgent going on. The person needed to have his loved one moved, and so we were able to handle that right away than waiting for him to be frustrated over the weekend. So if you have a frustration, let somebody know. And the first one you would go to would be that nurse on the floor. We do have issues with communication. I think that is any place you go to. People can't read each other's minds. So if there's an issue, the best way to handle it is to let someone know. So if there is a problem, please communicate that so we can make it right. And I will be involved to help. We want to please you and make it right for you as this is your home. So if there's a situation, please let me know. So some of my goals is, of course, to keep us COVID-free as best as we can. Everybody has been vaccinated. We did have a few that do have an exemption, whether that would be medical or religious, but most everybody was vaccinated. Then we also are doing screening, and but we've been so fortunate that we've not had any positive residents in the health center since last year, November. So I'm very thankful for that. And then we are very much trying to keep everyone safe. So that is, of course, one of our goals here in the health center and in Springmore at large, to keep everyone safe from COVID. I'm also trying to, with help from all of my friends, to bridge the gap between the health center and the independent living. And so we would like to do some more with that, to some communication. Some of our nurses or some of our CNAs have never seen your beautiful campus. They show up to work and they clock in and they work on their little unit and they know nothing about Springmore as far as the outside of the health center. So I'm trying to work on that to try to get our staff in the health center to see the greater Springmore and to try to get to understand that this is your community and your home, and the health center is one part of that. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between that, which is why I so appreciate Mrs. Walton's. Her leadership has been great. She's very easy to work with, and I've really appreciated that so much. And then also trying to enforce some more accountability with our staff. We're working on that too. Again, it's not a perfect place, but there's a lot that is so good there, and we're trying to continue to work on that. And then lastly, I'm just trying to get ready for this change that we are coming up on in the health center, where we're going to look at patient-centered instead of an institutionalized. A lot of people just dread coming to the health center because you see people lined up in a wheelchair, and that's what I have to look forward to. And that's not what we want it to be at all. We want it to be a wonderful place where you feel loved and taken care of in those later years, and that there are things that you can do, and there's activities, and there's things that you're enjoying. And so we're working on getting that mindset, that culture change through the staff and also the residents and family members, that it's not just a health center, but it's a home. We're trying to make it more home-like for you as residents. So I thank you so much for the privilege of being here at Springmore. Again, I've been here about 22 years, and I love it. That's why I've stayed. And you are all like my grandmas and grandpas and my moms and dads, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to be here. Thank you.
They both said they would be happy to answer a few questions. If anybody has a particular question, this is not a I want to complain about me time. If you need to complain about yourself or your loved one's care, then as Debbie has just said, you need to go and talk to Debbie. Or the person that's involved, you need to go and deal with that. However, if you have any questions for information about the health center or questions for anything that Debbie or Carrie said, if you'll just raise your hand, I'll bring you what I hope is a working mic. No lights are coming on. No questions? Okay, thank you.
I think a question that almost everybody wants to ask is, after a person is admitted to the health center, what is the process for their leaving it?
Julia says everybody wants to know, once you have to go to the health center, what is the process for escaping?
That is a good word, isn't it? Escaping sometimes. Super easy to get in, kind of hard to get out. So usually when you get admitted into the health center, it's typically through a hospital visit, or it would be through the clinic. And there are occasions where you may have fallen in your apartment or something to that effect, and you are not needing to go to the hospital, but you really don't need to be alone that night. And so they bring you to the health center. But those are usually the ways that you would get into the health center. So when you come into the health center, of course, you have your nurse and you have your CNAs that are assigned to you to help you. And then what they do is every Tuesday, there is a meeting. So let's say you get admitted on a Saturday night. There's a meeting on a Tuesday morning that would discuss any of those on the short-term haul. And those would be residents that are looking to get home. Maybe they had a hip surgery and they're coming back to us to rehab and go back home. Or maybe they had pneumonia, or maybe they had a fall, or a UTI, or something that they needed treatment for, and then they're going to be heading back home. So on Tuesday, we have this meeting with a lot of the interdisciplinaries, the therapies, the doctors involved, and others, and then usually we try to spring you from there, or if you need a little bit longer. Sometimes, if you come in on a Saturday and you really can go home right away, we'll try to get you home right away. They don't want to keep you any longer than you have to. But usually there's multiple papers and things that they have to get through to get you back home. But if you are ready to go home and you're really running through it, y'all know my number. You can just say, Debbie, get me out of here. And I will do what I can to get you out. As long as you're medically cleared, we're going to get you out of there because we don't want you any longer. We're going to kick you out. If you need more help, sometimes that's hard to understand. Sometimes it's a family member that they just don't realize that they really do need more help, and they feel fine, but the committee is very, very nervous to send them home. Sometimes they'll do something called an LOA, which is a leave of absence, where we hang on to your room, but we'll let you go home for a night or two or see how you're doing. And if you're doing okay, they'll just go ahead and discharge you on home. That gives you a little bit option to not have to get kicked out too early. But again, we certainly want to spring you when you're ready. So don't feel trapped if you're struggling. Just talk to the nurse and say, hey, what is the plan for me to go home? Again, communication, a lot of times that's poor on our end, that we think everyone can read our mind. So if you are questioning, can I go home or what's the plan, just let the nurse know and we'll get a hold of you, or I can help too. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have any questions, but I do want to say that my mother was here for 21 years, and she spent 4 years in the health center, and they were wonderful to her.
Were you Virgie's family? I can see it in your face.
But my mother loved the health center. She loved the people that took care of her, and she was here for 21 years and was happy. Nothing is ever perfect, but it was as perfect as it could be.
Thank you for saying that. This is Virgie Baxley's family, and Virgie was with us for a number of years. Sweetheart of a lady. I remember seeing her from South Village to Supportive and to the health center. So she was a dear woman. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Now, let's have the drawing for the gifts from First Citizens. And let's let Debbie draw. Come on up here, Peg, and announce.
The number is 773-5645. 773-5645. It's got to be somebody.
Try again.
Okay, Debbie? And there'll be a second one, so just stay put. 773-5639. Okay, and for the second one? Seven, 5638. Betsy in the back. Thank you, Debbie. And before we adjourn, I do want to say that our program next month in November is a direct follow-up to this. Our speaker will be Brad Dilday, who is coordinating all of the plans with Carrie Corley and the other staff members for the renovation. And he will come and do a PowerPoint presentation, tell us a lot of information, and it's a great follow-up to this because you can get an idea of what we have ahead of us when the renovations are done. So we look forward, please come next month. And of course, the Residents Association does not meet in December, so that will be the final meeting of the year. Thank you all for coming.